All right, quick review. What is one migration theory we talked about yesterday? Say again? What is the full name? The Bering Land Bridge. That's correct. What is the characteristics of that one? Welcome back.
The land bridge migration. Is that what
Okay, tell me about it. Explain that theory one at a time. Somebody raise their hand.
Go ahead, Hannah.
No. Rusty, you're up.
Why can't she do it? This connects to Russian, I don't know what you want to say, big old thing of ice to walk across.
Yes, about 90 miles across there. So explain more. What group of people or groups of people came across?
The Chinese. The I don't know how to say Ayuri.
No. Not the Inushi. Nope. There you go, Mongolians. Nope. Guys, I got the map up there to even give you a clue.
How did the Caucasians not come from that?
Right here, Caucasian route. It's even so happened colored in white.
So then which way did they use
Well, let's stay with the Bering Land Bridge. Ladies and gentlemen, this is on the test. We are reviewing, and tomorrow there is a quiz. You got a phone, Isaiah? Got a phone on you? Not on you? Okay. Anybody got a phone? Go put it where it belongs. Let's go. Meanwhile, how would you explain the Bering Land Bridge migration? We've identified Mongolians. Pangea, no, Pangea is way before this. Huh? No. Russians, what we'd call Russians today, Northern Chinese, Northern Asians migrated across. Now, it's either dry land or frozen. We don't really know. Some speculate that the water level was much lower and they're able to walk across there. Others say, nah, they walked across on the ice. They could even build some kind of little skiff and scoot it across 90 miles. Either way, they came across and dispersed throughout North America. Yes? Well, some of them, but some of them are also Asian. Because how big Russia is, this part that we're dealing with here is actually considered Asia. Let's mark that. Whoops, too far. So hang on. How many tribes? They were not tribes. Groups. Groups is too particular, or tribes too particular. Do you recall how many groups that anthropologists think originally all Native Americans in North and South America originated from? Three. 50 to 150 member groups. Remember, these are assumptions based on carrying capacity. It's very likely this assumption will change based on what they discover before the end of your lifetime. But right now, this is what they think. What's the other migration theory? What's the oldest migration theory? No. No, Pangea is supercontinent, nothing to do with migration. Say again? What about the boats? There you go. What do we call that? You just mentioned the type of people. Okay, but there's something before that. It's hyphenated. There you go. Proto-Japanese migration theory. That's right. When did this theory come about? What was the root of this proto-Japanese migration theory? The Kennewick Man in 1996. And we know he is Japanese because of why? The DNA test, that's right. They estimate through carbon dating that the bones are 9,600 years old, which places him there before the Bering Land Bridge migration theory. So scientists now believe, their assumption is that people began migrating here as old or as long ago as 30,000 years because of this discovery. This one discovery has changed the entire paradigm of migration to the Americas. And when they find somebody else different that gives them other data, then that migration theory will change, or could change, or it will be reconfirmed. You're absolutely, that's why it's very important for you to remember, even though they call these theories, they truly are not theories. These are assumptions, and that's as good as they're going to get. Now, be honest with you, the Kennewick Man is the strongest assumption because of the DNA. But it's still assumptions. If they could find a whole bunch of Kennewick men that DNA suggests or comes from Japan, they only have one, yes. Then that becomes even stronger. But right now they have one individual whose DNA, in fact, not just DNA of Japan, because Japan has like 10,000 islands. There are multiple images in satellites that suggest there's multiple boats out there, or shipwrecks. And that's the other evidence to suggest, okay, if we have a proto-Japanese Paleo-American here, how did he get here? Well, the second piece of evidence is what they believe to be satellite images of shipwrecks that resemble Japanese ships. So you would explain that when you're explaining the proto-Japanese migration theory. Now, what is the last and newest migration theory? Proto-Caucasian migration theory, that's right. Why do we know Caucasians were here at some point before 1492? Wayden? Blue eyes in Native Americans. Yep. And only Caucasians have blue eyes. Yep. What evidence do we have besides blue eyes? Let me rephrase this. What written documents do we have of natives having blue eyes before now? Lewis and Clark's journals. With what group of natives? The Mandan Indians. Yep, up in North Dakota. They spent a winter with them. Very friendly natives to them. Took care of them. Got them outfitted for the spring journey. All right, good review. Okay, we talked about the native groups, right? How many were there? Oh, no, we haven't gotten, now we're going to break it down a little bit. 10, so they were, often we hear they're called nations, Indian nations. They weren't nations, they were tribal groups. It's very important to understand the difference, but by and large, there was 10 broad Indian cultures throughout the last 10,000 years. Yes?
Did we already write them down?
I don't think we have. I'm pretty sure we stopped at the map.
What notes would you call
Oh, it's still part of the pre-Columbian period. I would keep writing and then add to them when you get to your folder. This is all still under the pre-Columbian period. So anthropologists believe that all of the natives can be combined into 10 broad groups. And that's based on the regions in which they settled and thrived in. Angel, you're going to have a tough time. Unless you had a photographic memory. Most certainly there's variations among these groups, but they have a lot of similarities, even down to their language. So it's hard to see in this map exactly, but we're going to look at North America here for really the rest of the time period. So you got the Plains Indians. Notice not only are they in the Midwest of the United States, but all the way up into the plains of Canada. You got the Plateau Indians. If you've ever been to northwest Washington, Colville, Spokane, northwest Oregon, North Idaho, that's all considered the Plateau region. You got the Great Basin, which, as you can imagine, is the Great Salt Lake area, Utah, northern Nevada, all that desert region. We're a mix. Yeah, we kind of where we're sitting right now. Some people would argue we are part of the Great Basin. Others would say we're at the edge of the plateau. So you got like the Duck Valley Indian Reservation. The Duck Valley Indians would be a Great Basin Indian tribe. The Blackfeet, however, traditionally are not Great Basin. They'd be over here in the plains. Let's see if I can read it. Whoops, I just messed up my slides. Hang on here. I did it again. I'm trying to make it bigger here. Over here, in the pink over here, I don't have a name over there other than California. The natives down in this part of California are very different than all the other natives. And I'm not sure if they call them Californian natives in terms of a broad tribal name. There's lots of different subgroups there, but they are very different from the other natives in North America, or I should say in the continental United States. They remind me of more like Brazilian or South American natives. Loincloths, even more primitive than our plains nations. Yes, Rusty. That's Baja. A peninsula. Yeah. Cross over at San Diego, you're on the peninsula. So, and then you got the northwest natives. Okay, Sequim, Port Angeles, Astoria, Oregon, all of those natives up in that region. You asked a good question about the difference of the Southern California natives. That's probably the best way I could describe them. The way I read about them, that's how I envision them. There's lots of reports of them. And the other thing, by the way, the Northwest region, they did a lot of totem pole activity. There's some in the southern coastal area, but not near as much as the northern coast. But they're just much different, a lot less clothing, much more primitive than the Plains Indians. You got the eastern, you got the southeast, and you got the northeast. Well, that's one of the reasons, and you wear clothes to keep warm, so. And of course you got the southeast, you got the Pueblo Indians, and all of those different sub-tribal groups. Okay, one thing that's erroneous in history. We often think of Native Americans as being horsemen, that they have this long, ancient relationship with horses. That is not true. They did not have horses in North or South America prior to 1492, and they didn't get control of them or start making it part of their culture until after 1680. They'd never seen a horse before the Spanish arrived in South America. They didn't perfect horsemanship until the 18th century, and some of them even later into the 19th. What's that? They didn't know anything about them, had no idea how to ride them, how to tame them, how to use them. When you got a company of Spanish conquistadors riding up on an armored horse, that's pretty intimidating. Exactly.
They weren't riding deer.
No. These native groups lived along major rivers, and farming and hunting was their primary substance. So if you have like two major river junctions, you can be certain there would have been a fairly large native city there. All right, so major native American native cities of North America. You do not have to write these down, but just so you're aware of them, the Mississippian. Where do you think this civilization centered and sprung up from? The Mississippi River, that's right. And so as you can imagine, the Mississippi River being the largest river in the United States, there's a lot of them, and it's actually the biggest civilization, and it covers thousands of miles. How about the Pueblonian? I'm sure I'm not saying that word right. Could be. That sounds a little better than I can say it. What particular Indian group does that ring a bell for you? Pueblos. Where are they from? Where do we think of them residing? Pueblo what?
Baja.
No.
Mexico.
No. Colorado. This is the Southwest and into New Mexico. Southwest tribe. Or I should say tribal group, cultural group. So when you think of the cliff dwellers in New Mexico who created these huge cities out of sandstone, carved them right out of the sandstone mountain, that's these guys. Well, that's going to be your Mayan group here, but we're not dealing with South America. We drop down into remember, North America, Mexico is considered North America. And so we drop down into Mexico with this. Let's see here. Trying to think here. The Adena, where are they from? I'm trying to think. Where are they? I think that is the particular group that or civilization that settled the southwest, or southeast. And then, of course, the Aztec, where did they grow up and dominate?
Mexico.
Not just Mexico, because the Pueblonians were down in Mexico too. Look, no, Spain. Mexico City in particular. That region around Mexico City was the heartbeat of the Aztecs. How about the Mayans? South of Mexico, well, no, because we already named them. South of Mexico, though.
No, they're down there on the, not the tail, I got confused.
So mine were in South Mexico, so
Guatemala, right?
Yes. Now, there's some overlapping. This is not black and white. There is overlapping of these groups, okay, which always causes conflict. But, by and large, the Mayans are Central and South America. Southwest. Yeah, southwest. And northern Mexico. So your Arizonan tribes, your north section of the desert regions of North Mexico, Arizona, some of Colorado, and all of New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona.
wait, so all of these like stopped showing around
1250 is when they peaked out in their civilization, meaning their greatness, their full civilization.
They start disappearing.
It started declining.
Didn't the Aztecs like fully disappear? Like they don't know what happened?
We know what happened to them. Ask the Spanish.
Oh, you're saying.
That's, yeah, exactly. Between the disease and the war, they ended up, those that did survive ended up basically going into servitude.
It's what the Aztecs
What happened to the ones?
based off of that they don't know what happened.
No, it's the Olmecs. Olmecs, we have no idea what happened to them. There's been no bones found of them, nothing. All we have of them is those big stones.
What about those ones that like carved their homes like on the side of mountains?
That's the Puebloanians. And they disappeared too. Yeah, they totally were gone by the time Columbus arrived.
Well, yeah, if they're building their houses on big gold cliffs, you can guess like that.
Yes, Casey.
What was that place where the volcano erupted?
Pompeii, Italy.
Whoa, a little far off. But
So, by 1250 AD, these civilizations have collapsed into what Europeans end up finding. All right. Any questions about that? This is the end of this particular slide deck for the pre-Columbian period. What I'm trying to do here is set the stage to explain at one time there was thriving civilizations here that rivaled Europe at one time. But by the time the Europeans arrived, the Spanish in 1492, they don't exist anymore. Those that are left are very, I want to be careful. I do not mean to say this in a derogatory way, but very uncivilized, very they're very simplistic. Can I put it that way? But I don't mean it in a derogatory way. I'm only saying that in comparison to what they once was, they have really fallen off the cliff, if you will. So when the Europeans arrive and they see these people, these Indian groups, these native groups, and they see what used to be here, I mean, let's face it, when they get down to South America and they see these huge stone temples that the Aztecs build, and they're looking at these Aztecs, like, this doesn't make sense. How did this happen? Now, that plays a role in their demise as well because especially Cortez, Conquistador Cortez, he takes advantage of some of their lore. One of those lores was that one of their gods, and I cannot, Quetzalcoatl or something like that, starts with a Q. Huh? That sounds pretty close. He was a white god, and he said, I am leaving, and I will be back to punish you. I'm leaving because of how immoral and the kind of activities you are doing, particularly over human sacrifice. Aztecs in particular were famous for sacrificing children, and one of their famous things was either bleeding them out like a goat or just cutting their hearts out while they're alive. Yep, offering their heart to the gods. And so when Cortez arrives, he's white, and he's extremely powerful. And they think he is the God that's come back. And when he comes back with a vengeance. Not only does he come back with his army, which is extremely powerful, and they have firearms when they arrive. They were matchlocks, but they do have firearms. They have cannons, and of course, very good tactics with swords and infantry and cavalry. All the natives have is this log that's got obsidian in it to be made like a sword, and it could literally take a horse's head off. Extremely sharp. If you ever get a chance to go down to CSI at the museum down there in Twin Falls, they actually have a replica of one. And they believe they could get this obsidian so sharp that it was sharper than a surgeon's scalpel. Yep. And so obsidian is very sharp, and so that's about the only weapon, and even their bows and arrows that they use and spears was not a whole lot of match against Spanish armor. But that sword that they made was a number on those horses. So, but at the end of the day, you're still no match for the strongest army in the world at the time, and that's the Spanish army. On top of that, and we're going to move into the Columbian Exchange, you have this other thing called disease. And before I go any further with that, we'll move into the Columbian Exchange. All right, give me just a minute here. What time do we have? We got time.